Hello. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about expectations in this course and expectations in general for online classes. As I've stated in the syllabus, an online course requires more independent work than does a face-to-face class. So be aware of this and think about whether or not you have the capacity to work independently. I won't be looking at you every day in class asking you if you've completed your assignments and how things are going. I can do that online, but I think it's a little bit different than it is in a face-to-face class. So you might think just a little bit about your ability to work independently and come to some decision about whether or not an online class is really for you. I'd also like to talk a little bit about expectations in general in any course at a college. I think many times a student's lack of success is not because of their inability to do well in the course, but because of some difficulties or misunderstandings about expectations. One thing that I think it's very important that you be aware of is that you shouldn't feel inadequate because you don't have a sufficient understanding of American government and American politics. That's precisely the reason you're in this class. So don't let that get in the way of your asking questions. You shouldn't feel uncomfortable when you don't know the answer to something. You should feel comfortable enough to ask, either me or your fellow classmates. So I'm hoping that that doesn't present any difficulty in your comfort in communicating with me, asking questions, and feeling completely at ease to participate in all aspects of the class. So you don't feel inadequate because you're not an expert in American politics. That's the reason you're here in the course. Something else I'd like to talk about is there are a variety of what we call pedagogical strategies. Pedagogy is simply the process of teaching. And in this course, as well as in courses I teach face-to-face, I have students work in groups. And this can be a little frustrating sometimes because you have to get the coordination and collaboration of your fellow group members, but research has shown that collaborative learning is very effective, and on average it's much more effective than learning in an individual way. So you'll be working in groups in this course. The intent is to specifically help you prepare in the writing of your weekly essays. But research has shown that when students work in groups, they learn more comprehensively, more thoroughly than if they do individually. So understand that the group work is not an exercise to keep you busy for the sake of being busy, but because I'm aware of research that shows that collaborative work is better than working alone in an academic setting. Understand too that I have expectations of you, and that includes your responsibility in this course. Some students, by no means all, have an understanding that, especially from their work in face-to-face courses, that the responsibility of learning lies with the instructor. In a traditional setting, the instructor is lecturing in front of the class, students passively accept this information, write notes, etc. That's not my expectation. My expectation is that you share an equal responsibility for learning, as do I. My responsibility is to provide different units for each of the week that inform you about the institutions and the process of American government. And I've created that information. I've created some exercises that will promote your learning and understanding of these things, but you share a responsibility in your learning. So do not expect that you should be able to passively do the work in the class, but passively sit by while I'm the responsible person for having your learning take place. You share in that responsibility, so please be aware of that. I'm hopeful that I create an environment, an atmosphere where you feel completely comfortable to participate. There's nothing more that makes me happy than to see students participating in discussion groups beyond the required 2 postings in your group discussion or also after the posting of your weekly essay in the main discussion forum, to see you asking questions beyond the two required questions. You're of course not penalized, but I would urge you and promote the interaction between you and fellow students and between you and me. The more that we interact and communicate, the better the learning environment will be. But the most important message that I want you to take away from this brief video is that learning is a shared responsibility. I share some of that responsibility, but you share it also. So keep that in mind, and I hope you have a great quarter.